All right, this time I remembered. And let's share the screen. I'm going to try something a little different and see if this works. Okay. Um, Now, can you guys see the screen?
Yes.
Are you seeing the rest of my computer or just the screen?
Just your PowerPoint.
Perfect. I got it to work. Good. Usually I have to expand it to my whole screen, and I finally figured out how to just put it in a slot there. Um, Bring my win. Are you still seeing the screen?
Yes.
Did it move?
No.
Aha. All right. Hang on one second. Screen sharing, play from start. Hang on here. Um, okay. That looks like it's working. Got it. All righty. Let me just bring the chat up here so I can see that. And we're going to get started. There we go. This is wonderful. Okay. I can actually see everything on the screen at the same time. So welcome to Tesla ABC's part 2. This is a long one. I'm going to need to take a few water breaks here just to keep my throat going. But we have a lot of stuff to cover tonight. So tonight we're going to take a deeper dive into the basics of our new cars. Okay, so what we're going to be looking at, and the way that most of these courses were put together, it started out with us getting online on. We're all pretty active in both Reddit and also on the TMC forums, and we started seeing a pattern where people were constantly asking the same type of questions and getting confused about the same type of things. So we wanted to put together a class that would address that. That's kind of what put these classes together. Originally, we did these together with the Delaware Valley Owners Club, and then we've kind of picked up the ball since then and have run with it. So the outline of what we're going to cover tonight, and I'll say, anybody, if you have a question, just throw in the chat either, hey, I got a question, or even post your question. Either way, if you just tell me you have a question, I'll call on you and ask you to come off mute, and you can ask it. It's like I said, it's nice that we don't have a ton of people in here because we can actually have a pretty good interaction, I think. So outline of what we're going to talk about tonight. We're going to talk about driving dynamics, which are very different in our cars. We're going to talk about charging tips and tricks, range. We're going to do some FAQs. We're going to go over some of the touchscreen functions. We're going to go over basic autopilot. There's another class that's dedicated to FSD because that in and of itself needs a class. So tonight we'll just be talking about basic autopilot and the safety features in the cars. Okay, screen is moving, right? Just give me a thumbs up so I know you guys are seeing. Okay, great. Okay, so the first thing we need to think about in driving dynamics is what makes our cars so different than the cars we've been driving all these years. The first thing is we have instant torque, and that's a normal function for our cars. So we get instant torque. We do experience some limitations on our power output based on weather conditions and the state of charge. So a cold battery in the state of charge, and we're going to talk about that. And regenerative braking is also a very different feature in our cars, which is basically one pedal driving for all intents and purposes. But there are times when regeneration also gets limited. So when we look at regenerative braking, let's take a quick look and see how that works. When we're accelerating, we're taking energy, and can you guys see the cursor okay? You see my cursor moving around?
Yeah, we're good. We got it.
Great. Okay. So we're taking energy out of the battery into an inverter because our electric motors are not DC. Our electric motors are AC motors. Our battery puts out DC energy. So there's an inverter in the car that takes the DC energy, inverts it to AC, sends it to the motor, that then sends it to the wheels. That's normal acceleration driving. When we're doing the opposite, when we're slowing down, what's happening is The wheels, as you notice, are still turning in the same direction, but the motor generates a negative torque in the reverse direction to slow the wheels down. When it does that, it can put power back into the inverter as AC power, which then goes back into our batteries as DC power. And that's really the function of the way regenerative braking works. Any questions on this one? Okay, good. Yeah, we found that people are really confused about what's really going on when we use the regenerative brakes. Okay, so let's talk about some of the limits that we encounter. We're in the winter, so we're dealing with cold weather. If you look at this battery gauge up here, when you see that snowflake sitting up there, that's telling you you have a really cold battery. The blue section on here, which you will get occasionally, the blue section tells you that because of the cold temperature of the battery, there's literally a portion of the battery that Tesla's not going to let us use because the temperature of that section of the battery is too cold, so we can't access that until it warms up. To let us know that we've got that going on, when it limits power, on the right side of the screen, you'll see dots along there. And yes, I know the user interface has changed. Things are moved around, but these all items are still on there somewhere.
So quick question.
Sure.
If I cold soak my battery and I don't have time to precondition it, is pulling out of the driveway and going down the road, is it harmful to the battery?
No.
Okay.
No, you're fine. And the only thing that's going to happen is, as you know, you're not going to really have regenerative braking when that's going on. And it's going to give you a message that says it's limited.
Yeah. Still catches you off guard when you come up to the first stop sign, even though it warns you. And all of a sudden you're like, whoa, I'm not slowing down like I should have or like I'm used to.
Yeah, I leave here. I got a steep hill that I go down. And it's like, holy crap, I got to hit the brake.
Yeah. What's that pedal to the left of the accelerator? No idea.
Yep. So yeah, you're not going to damage your battery. Tesla has an amazing temperature management system in there. Their battery management system is second to none, and they protect the battery. And the way they do that is by what we're talking about right here: limited power and limited regen when the dots are on the left side. And that's how Tesla keeps too much energy from getting fed back into a cold pack, because cold batteries don't like to get charged. So, and it's funny because when we think about cold weather, we're actually talking about anything below 50 or 55 degrees, you may get a limited regen message, and you may see some dots along the side of your instrument panel. Also a full battery, if you notice this is a full battery up here, a full battery will also limit your regenerative braking. Because think about it logically, if you've got no place to put the juice, it's not going to let you overcharge the battery. So when your battery pack is charged really high, it's not going to let you do regenerative braking. Also, on the rare occasion that we have an extraordinarily hot battery, this is something we'll probably never see where we live here, but folks out in the desert in Arizona and Nevada, they could see that happen. An extraordinarily hot battery will also limit regen. Okay, questions about that? Okay, so let's talk about how we charge our cars. The first thing is keep your car plugged in and set your limits. In the Model 3Y, you're looking at 90%. In the S and the X, between 70 and 80%. That should be your daily charge. It doesn't mean that you have to do that. For example, if your daily drive is 30 or 40 miles round trip, and that's all you're going to use, you have no reason to charge your car to 90%. If that's all the driving you're doing, charge it to 70%, charge it to 80%. By keeping the state of charge lower on the battery, it helps to increase the battery life. That's healthier for your battery. Regarding a trip charge, so you're going to leave in the morning, you're taking a long trip, you want every mile that you can get because that supercharger is just 5 miles too far away. It's okay to trip charge right to 100% if you want to, but my rule when I do this is I never let the battery sit at 100% for more than an hour. So if I'm leaving in the morning at 9 o'clock, I am not going to charge my battery to 100% until 8 o'clock, knowing that I'm getting in the car in an hour and I'm going, and it's not going to be sitting at 100% for any length of time. That will degrade your battery. That is very detrimental to your battery. You never want it sitting at 100%. It's fine to charge it to 100% and go. Doesn't do any damage. Everything's cool. But the thing that I have found, I used to do that. I mean, when I first started out with that 6 years ago, driving Teslas, I used to do that 100% charge. But now I'm realizing that by doing that and killing regen, I'm actually really not gaining all that much range as a result of that. That I'm actually better off charging to 90, maybe 95% at the most, and having some regen available, especially where I live. When I leave here, I can go downhill for 15 miles after I leave my house. Well, that's a whole lot of regen that I don't get. So why waste it pouring it into the battery when I can generate it for nothing when I'm on the road? So keep that in mind when you're thinking about range charging, about trip charging. Okay, so charging when road tripping. In cold weather, which we're all in the middle of right now, you always want to plan on charging your car when you get there. You do not want to let your car sit on a lower state of charge and then figure you're just going to charge in the morning. If you think about it, cold soaked batteries don't like to take a charge. So if you wait until the morning to charge your battery and it's cold soaked, you could be sitting there for an hour before it even starts charging, just for the battery to get up to temperature. So the smart thing to do is when you arrive at your destination, get your charge up to 80 or 90% right away. And then in the morning, you're ready to go and you're not going to have any charging issues. Okay. Does that make sense? Okay, great. Okay, so when we're road tripping, we have the 80-20 rule. The highest supercharging rate is always going to happen at the lowest state of charge. So if you look at this particular example, this particular vehicle is now charging at 133 kilowatts because its state of charge is very low. However, as the state of charge increases, which is the bottom line here, the charging rate decreases. And there's a sweet spot to this. And I've learned this, again, you kind of learn this stuff the hard way. My daughter lives in Austin, Texas. I drive down there all the time. I was, when you're taking a trip like that, you're always thinking, how can I do this better? And what you figure out is you want to spend the least amount of time charging and the most amount of time driving. So you want to plan your trips efficiently by supercharging between 20 and 80% for your maximum charge rate. It allows you to spend the least amount of time at the supercharger. And the next chart I find is a real eye-opener. So here's a Tesla Model 3 at a V3 supercharger. So if you pull in there and you've got a state of charge at 12%, and you want to charge that to 80%, it's going to take you, if you look at this chart, it's going to take 24 minutes to do that. If you want to go from 80 to 97, it's going to take you another 26 minutes to do that. It will take you as long to get that last 20% as it did to get you that 60% between 20 and 80. So if you think about how you're spending your time, you'd rather spend that last 24 minutes driving instead of charging. Okay, so questions about the 80-20 rule? Great. Yeah, it will save you a ton of time and it will make your trips a lot more efficient. So the built-in trip planner doesn't take into account a couple of things. One, what percent you want to arrive at. And it doesn't really take into account that 80-20 rule that we just talked about. So there are a couple of alternatives to that. As this says, when possible, make more frequent stops, charge for less time. But there's a couple of products out there that can help us with that. One is called a Better Route Planner, which is actually a really good product, runs on your desktop, but also has a phone app. It's designed to take into consideration things like what percentage you want to arrive at. It takes into consideration elevation for the trip you're taking, and will also give you a ton of really good information. This is out of that product right here, where it's.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
the thing I like about it is once you plan it, you can actually send it to your Model 3. I don't know about the Model S and others, but I actually take that, what I planned in Better Route Planner, and have it connected to my Tesla account, and I can actually have that route sent to my car.
Really, Mark?
Yeah, so there's when you log in that you can have it actually when you look at the settings, you log in with your Tesla account. So you log into Better Route Planner, you go into settings, you connect it to your Tesla account, you plan everything, and then you hit share, and you point it to your Tesla navigation, and it loads it. So as soon as you go down in your garage and pull out, it's already in there.
But now, is it loading the route or just the destination?
That Tesla car
It does the route.
thing. So I'm
Okay.
upset.
Okay, 'cause that's something that I mean, you can share those things from Google Maps, from iPhone Maps, but it doesn't always share the route. It shares the destination, and then the onboard nav does the routing.
I could be wrong, but every time I've done it, the way I've chosen in the Better Route Planner is the way it shows up in my car. It might be a coincidence that they're the same.
Okay,
I don't know, but
yeah.
it works.
Okay, yeah. And I was going to say, yeah, that's a great feature, and you can do that if you're using any of the mapping functions, Google Maps, any of that on your phone. You can always share that with your Tesla app, and then when you get in the car, the destination will be there for you.
His brothers were second junior year and one senior year.
Okay. I just muted Alan there, so just so he's okay. All right. So a Better Route Planner is handy because it's got a phone app. There's another product called EV Trip Planner also, which is only a desktop application, but also does very similar stuff. Either of those, work really well.
I've also found them to be extremely accurate.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And generally, I'll tell you, I find that the nav system is very accurate. So when I take when I run down to Texas, what I'll do is I'll plan it on Better Route Planner, and I'll actually print that out to keep with me in the car. But then when I'm in the car, I pretty much use Tesla's nav, and I refer back to Better Route Planner as a reference just to see if there's anything I want to change between the two of them. Okay, so one of the other things we can do to charge more efficiently at superchargers is to precondition our batteries for supercharging. So if you're on a long trip, while you can put your destination, your ultimate destination at the nav and start operating that way, when you know that you're going to a supercharger, set that supercharger as your destination, and then the battery will precondition for the supercharger probably 5 or 10 miles before you get to it. And what that really does is optimize the battery temperature for supercharging. And if you look here, this is kind of interesting. It's the average amount of time spent between a vehicle that's been warmed up en route versus a vehicle that has not. So there's no question that there's a significant difference in there. I will warn you that it will use a little bit more power. So you are going to use some energy to do that because now you're going to be directing heat to the battery. But in the new Model 3 and Y, it's really not that much of an issue because we're dealing with a heat pump. In the older vehicles and in the S and the X, we're still dealing with, though I don't know about the new S and the X, they may now have heat pumps in them. But in previous models where you were dealing with electric resistance heating, that could take a reasonable amount of juice to do that. But amazingly, the heat pumps are only about 300 watts of power. It's incredible how efficient they are. Okay. Any questions about charging when we're road tripping?
The one thing I've discovered is you talk about, I go to Pittsburgh a lot, and I got hit one supercharger on the way out, and I've discovered a lot of parking garages now provide free charging if you're parking in their garage.
Yep.
Now they're level 2. They're usually a charge point or a blink or something along those lines. But when I go to Pittsburgh, I can hit one supercharge on the way out. I only need to charge for like 12 minutes. Then when I get to the garage, I just plug in the level 2. And if you have a blink app or the charge point, it'll let you know how many slots are open, so you can let your car sit there. As long as there's extra slots, I don't bother unplugging my car until I'm ready to leave. And with the phone app, I can charge it to 90%, knowing it's going to sit there for a day or two. And then the night before I leave, like you said, I charge it to 100%, knowing that I schedule it. So I know it's going to leave, I'll leave at 100%, but it hadn't sat there I'm only topping off. So really planning where you're parking and staying next to destination chargers or in garages that provide that charging. I mean, I'm already paying to park there. They're letting me charge for free. So I try to get there as little battery as I can, knowing that they're going to let me charge for free and top off.
Yep.
I want that $4, or whatever it turns out to be. So, the prior planning and doing a little bit of research has really worked well for me. Finding those free chargers or, somewhere where I don't have to, you talk about losing range when you park. I don't have to worry about having enough battery to last for 3 days that it's sitting in a parking garage. And you're going to cover why here in a minute. So.
Yep. And yes, and we are going to cover why. And yes, it is normal to lose range while parked. I know for you guys that were in the level 1 class, some of this is going to be a refresher on that, but we think it's important, so we try to cover it. So yeah, battery energy is going to be lost even when your car is parked. Again, consumption for the computer and maintaining the battery temperature. And everybody calls it vampire drain. Okay, so what's normal? 3 to 5 miles a day on average is considered normal. When the car's asleep, basically, 1 to 2% of your range a day is going to be normal. If your car's awake and online, it could be greater than 5%, and even more depending on what you're using. The biggest hog by far of vampire drain is Sentry mode. You literally can lose 1% of your range per hour when Sentry mode is active. It's a biggie. So you need to be aware of that. So I'm not saying that people shouldn't use Sentry mode, but use it when you really need to. If you're parking in some spot that's maybe a little questionable and you want to keep it on and you're parking for, an hour and doing food shopping, it's no big deal. But you certainly would not want to park for a couple of days with Sentry mode on, unless you're sure that you've got a good connection and your car is being charged. You're not going to let it sit there unplugged doing that. You'll lose 50% of your charge in 2 days.
The other thing is you'll have a lot of Sentry mode files that'll have popped up. If you're in a parking garage and cars are driving by, because every time a car drives by, depending on how close it is, they'll log it as an event. Then your USB dash, used to fill up. Now it overwrites, but, used to fill up on you, and then you might not capture the one that you actually need. Yep. So.
Yeah, I actually got tired of all that, and I put a 2 terabyte SSD in there, so I don't even think about it anymore. Okay, so cabin overheat protection. If you're parking somewhere and the car's going to be unplugged for a length of time, these are the steps you need to take to make sure that you're going to have something left in the battery when you get there. And that's turn off Sentry mode. Be careful about apps that wake the car up, like Stats for Tesla and Teslafy. Every time those apps go out and poll your car for data, they're waking everything up again. And the car never gets to get to sleep. When the car sleeps, that's when it's kind of in standby mode, and it's the most efficient way to preserve your battery. Cabin overheat protection, summon standby is another one. There's no reason to leave summon standby on. It takes juice for no reason at all. And all it really does is make your car respond 10 or 15 seconds faster if you're going to summon the car. Again, cold temperatures will do it. Any aftermarket add-ons that use energy, you need to consider all of those if you're parking the car for any length of time and you're not plugging it in. So this always bears repeating. So when in doubt, remember your ABCs. Always be charging. Anytime you can plug the car in, plug the car in. You can't hurt the car by doing that. It maintains your battery near the set limit. You can't overcharge it. And as a rule also, if the car is going to be sitting for more than 30 days, set your charge level to 50%. Okay. Any questions on that? Great. Either I'm a really good teacher or you guys are all asleep already. One of the two. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about driving range. This is always an item of confusion. We talk about this a little bit in the ABC class. We're going to talk about it a little bit more here. Everybody has this confusion when they look at this number right here, this 217 number, and geez, this guy's a perfect example. He's got 217 miles of range. He's only going 140 miles, but he's getting a warning to slow down. That's because the number we're looking at when we look over here at this 217 is the EPA rated range for our cars. That's what's being displayed. That is not necessarily the range that we're going to get based on how you, in particular, are driving your car at that moment. Your actual range is going to depend on a number of factors, some of which you can modify. Speed is one of them, and it's the most important one. The other factors depend on the route and the environment. So the temperature, we can't do anything about. We can't do anything about the external weather and elevation. So the one we want to focus on is speed. The only other thing we might be able to do is maybe we can change our routing a little bit. So navigation takes those factors in, your speed, the temperature, and things like rain and elevation. It takes those factors into consideration in determining that this particular guy, even though he's showing 217, he is not going to make it 140 miles at the speed he's traveling. So it's going to give him that warning. Now, on daily driving, this never means anything. I mean, our cars, if you really think about the first EV folks out there that bought the Nissan Leaf, that had 35 miles of range and had a sweat every time that they tried to make it to work and back. Okay, we're not in that situation. Our cars have hundreds of miles of range. For normal daily driving, range is rarely an issue. We leave with a full tank, so to speak, every morning.
You know, the biggest thing I've found to get rid of my range anxiety was switch that 217 to percentage.
Yeah, I think that's next slide or two.
Yeah, because I was, you buy it and you talk to a bunch of people and they say about the range and you start getting range anxiety. And a friend of mine said, who has a Model 3, swap it to percentage, your range anxiety will go away. And it literally did overnight. Because I wasn't trying to calculate, I'm driving 20 miles from here to there. I just looked, I've got 60%. I got 60% of my tank or whatever, and it just completely went away. Yep. So getting rid of that to me was a huge life change.
Yep.
So
absolutely, and it's one of the things that we always tell everybody in the initial classes. If you want to get rid of range anxiety, stop looking at the miles, put it on percentage. It's
Yep.
always going to be accurate. It's not telling. There's no lies in there. There's no estimates. The percent is the percent. That's what you got in your battery. It's always going to be accurate. And if you're concerned about what that translates into in miles, it's pretty, it's the math isn't that hard. Okay. You've got 326 miles of range in the Model Y. For every 10%, you're down 32 miles. It's pretty easy to figure out. So, but the effects of speed and temperature on range are pretty dramatic. And if we take a look at this chart, this really displays that. By slowing down, first of all, you only get about 70% of our rated range in cold weather. Also, you'll notice after 40 miles an hour, our range decreases as the speed increases at any temperature. So reduction in speed is the #1 factor you can do to control that. If you take a look at this, dropping this car from 75 to 55 miles an hour in speed actually adds 70 miles of range to this vehicle. Just so you guys are aware of that, if you take a look at that. And that's going down 20 miles an hour. Go down 10 and you just added 35. So if instead of driving 75, you drive 65, you just picked up 35 miles of range. In this particular case, that's why that nav system is giving that guy an alert. Okay, so speed on power consumption. It's literally a straight line. I mean, if you take a look at what's going on here, and so once you get past 60, look at that curve. It's a real steep curve going up after that. So understand that our cars are most efficient, by the way, between 35 and 40 miles an hour, but exponentially increase beyond 60. Just another chart that really kind of shows how a Model 3 energy loss happens as speed increases. And again, you see that mark, you get past 60 miles an hour and it takes off. But what's interesting to notice in here is that your rolling resistance kind of stays fairly flat. It's kind of linear, where your drag is what is going up exponentially at that point. Okay, so what else can we do to maximize our range for trips? For Model S and X or older Model 3s, use your seat heater, limit how much heat you're using. In the new models, it's not, as I said before, not nearly as dramatic because the heat pump is so much more efficient. Choose a shorter route, drive in chill mode, use cruise control. Pre-warm your battery before you leave. You don't, again, if you leave with a cold battery, no, you're not going to hurt it, but you're going to be using energy to bring up the battery temperature, and that's energy that you could have used for range. Check your tire pressures, guys. Again, because of the weight of our cars take more tire pressure than most vehicles do. It's very important. If you let your pressure down, you'll see a marked difference in your range. So, and the other thing, as far as I know with these cars, is we need to understand the actual energy usage in the energy chart. And we're going to talk about the energy chart real quick here. So we just explained that is rated range that we're looking at. Okay. This to me, these two charts, the consumption and trip charts, should be your Bible. This really it explains exactly how our vehicles function and lets us see ways that we can influence what our range is going to be. So when we look at this chart right now, okay, our EPA rated range up here is 246 miles. It's only given us 217 miles as projected range here. That's because if we look at the dotted line, it says that our average efficiency over the last 30 miles, we're averaging 279 watt hours per mile. In this particular car, that solid line is what we need to average in order to get the EPA rated range. So when that dotted line is above it, this projected line is going to be below the EPA rated range. If it goes the other way, then the opposite occurs. So, as I just explained. Okay, so when we're looking at this, in this vehicle, you'll notice we've got 220 miles of EPA rated range, and we're projecting 220 miles over here. When those two are equal, you'll notice that our dotted line is now on top of the solid line here, which is the rating for, in this particular case, it's a Performance Model 3. At 245 watt hours per mile, we meet the EPA testing range, and then those two numbers will match. But that's what we've got to average to make that happen. So if your average watt hour per mile is less than the rated range, then you'll see the opposite happen here. Now our dotted line's a little below the solid line. Notice our projected range is now 242, even though the EPA rated range is still 239. So if you really want real numbers, this is the chart you go to if you're looking at miles. On the other hand, the chart next to it, which is the trip chart, whenever we have a destination set in nav, this chart is available. When I am traveling, I use this chart constantly because what this tells me is how am I doing against what the projected consumption is. So if on my trip, that gray line, which is my projected consumption, is below on my actual line, I'm doing better than it was projected for range. So I know I'm not going to have any trouble getting to my destination. To me, it's the single most important thing your car can show you when you're on a road trip, by far. You live and die by this chart. And the idea here is that it gives you warning. So if all the way up here on the chart on your trip, you see your line dropping below the gray line, you know that you've got to make an adjustment somewhere in order to get to your destination. And the way you're going to make that adjustment is the factor we can control the most, of course, is speed. And if we can't do anything about our speed, then we've got to figure out how to get to a supercharger that's a little closer, because wherever we think we're going, we're probably going to not make it. Any questions about that?
I don't have any questions, but I'll make a comment. That chart, if you're on a road trip, like you said, I'll drive that up most of the time. If I'm on a highway and I'm on a long stretch, I don't have to worry about, looking at the nav system. I'll keep that up, and I'm constantly just glancing over to make sure that, something didn't change in my calculations. So.
Yep. And listen, it could be something that's totally out of your control. A good headwind, believe it or not, will have a dramatic impact on your range. And that's how you're going to see that, hey, something's going on here that I didn't plan for. So you want to keep that up and looking at it. And by the way, with the new UI, when you have that up, it's going to show you turn-by-turn directions on the left side of the screen.
Okay.
So you don't even have to look at it.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about a better route planner. I'll even go in and figure out, okay, I'm the only one in the car. I've got luggage, and you put that in that calculation, and that's why it gets so accurate, because it's looking at, okay, is there rain on the road, high rolling resistance? What's the temperature outside, the ambient temperature when I plan on driving? How much weight do I have in the car? If I got 4 people versus 1 person, that's going to affect me being able to get where I need to go. So I put that in a better route planner, and that way it kind of helps me know, okay, I'm not going to make it like I normally do when I'm in the car. I'm going to have to pull back a little bit somewhere and hit a different planner. So, yeah, I do like that chart a lot.
Yep, certainly my favorite. Any questions on that, guys? All righty then. So now we're going to talk about a couple of why, how do I, and what should I do if, and when do I need service? So first of all, the answer to most of your questions is in the owner's manual. And since a lot of us are guys on here, we never look at owner's manuals, but we need to. This is not just a car. We've got a computer on wheels here, and there's a lot of stuff to know about them.
Wheels is a 1998 comedy movie starring Dragan Marjanovic.
I don't know if you hear that, but my Alexa heard me say computer.
On his way to visit his father, young Namandi was caught in a
Anyway, the way that we get to the owner's manual, again, in the car, under the service menu.
Notorious as a meeting place of bad, dangerous.
Hang on one second. I'm going to unplug my.
Its runtime is 1 hour, 32 minutes, and it has an IMDb rating.
There we go. Sorry about that. All righty. So we can get it in the car under the service menu. We can get it online in your Tesla account, and you can download a PDF. And quite frankly, when I first got the car, I downloaded the PDFs fairly regularly, and then realized that every time I got a software update, the owner's manual I had was out of date. So I got in the habit of, I look at it online, I look at it in my car, and that way I know I'm looking at the latest release. Okay, so another question that gets asked all the time: why didn't I get the latest software update? So the first point in there, if you want the latest software updates, you need to make sure that your preferences are set to advanced. If not, you're going to be the low guy in the totem pole. The software updates are released slowly and randomly, and it takes them anywhere from a couple of days to a couple of months to get them out to every car out there. And that's becoming more and more serious as there are over 1 million cars on the road now.
The other thing I've noticed is I don't have FSD.
Mhm.
A friend of mine does. He gets the updates almost 2 weeks before me.
Yeah.
So that'll affect it too. What software you're subscribed or purchased.
Yeah, most of the changes that are coming right now have to do with FSD, and that's why they're prioritizing those cars for those updates, which makes sense. Again, you download without any user input. When your car is connected to, has a Wi-Fi connection, if it's going to, the mothership, as we call it, is going to send down a software update when they're available. When you get the notice, it's already downloaded the update. And it's all it's asking you to do is to confirm an installation. Now, the other reason for not getting a software update is a rough Wi-Fi connection. So it's important that you have a good Wi-Fi connection. You may need to put an extender in your garage. Some people have marginal signals in the garages, or if their cars are parked outside, that could be an issue also. When you're setting up your Wi-Fi, the 2.4 gigahertz connection is far more reliable. Teslas get very quirky when you hook up to the 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi connections. So, and you also get better range out of the 2.4. So remember, once you get the notice, it's already downloaded. You just need to initiate the update, which you can do either from your phone app or in the car. And this is very important. If an update fails, call customer support. Do not try to reboot. Do not try to do anything. If you get a failed software update, get on the phone. They can usually fix that problem over the air as long as you haven't started messing around with anything. And a failed software update can really screw your car up. Okay, so what do I do if the screen freezes and something doesn't function correctly? I don't know if anybody's ever seen the dreaded orange screen, but this used to pop up periodically a couple of years back. Don't fret, reset. Now, to reset our cars, reboot our cars, in the Model 3 and the Y, you press in both scroll wheels at the same time and hold them until the center screen goes black. In the Model S and the X, you also have to hold the buttons, the top buttons above the scroll wheels to reboot your center display. They're two separate entities and two separate computers, and in the S and the X, they need to be rebooted separately. Any questions about rebooting? And yes, you can do this while you're driving. If you're having issues while you're driving, you can do that. Yeah, your screen's going to go out, but all your functions are going to be there. You may not hear your directional signal going, but it's working. All the driving features of the car will always be functioning. The other alternative is if you're home and this is going on, power the car off. You can actually do a manual power off. Sit in the car, touch nothing for 3 minutes, and then restart the car. That will give the car a chance to reset everything. But if you open the door or hit the brake pedal or touch the screen, you're going to screw up your 3 minutes and you got to start again. If any error persists, again, email Tesla customer support or call them. Okay, communications with Tesla. This happens a lot. We're driving along and all of a sudden we see something weird going on and we're saying, geez, if I could only let Tesla know that this is going on. Well, we have a way to do that. All you have to do is hit the voice command button and say note, report, bug note, bug report, anything along that. You can say a description after that, but you don't even have to, because what's going to happen is as soon as you say that, it's going to take a snapshot of everything that's going on in your car at that moment and a few moments before, and it's going to send all that to Tesla. Real simple. The car should tell you thanks for your feedback. Now, if you're having a problem with your car, you can't depend on a bug report to get that resolved. When we send those reports to Tesla, nobody actually looks at them, or they don't look at them necessarily in any expedited manner. But if something goes wrong with your car and you do a bug report, note the time that you did the report. And when you bring the car in for service, you can tell them, I submitted a bug report at 11:14. Well, guess what? Service can then research that, and they can actually go see that snapshot of what was going on in your car at that time. So from that perspective, it's very helpful. But don't expect them to just fix problems because you submitted a bug report, because no one's really going to be looking at that necessarily for a couple of days. Okay. Any questions about bug reports? Okay, so since none of us has spare tires, what do? Well, the first thing is I always keep a 12-volt air compressor in my car. And I bought Tesla's, it was $80. It was pretty reasonably priced. And it's got tire sealant in it, which is kind of handy. I also keep a repair plug kit in the car. And again, you can always call roadside assistance if you can't drive. But with those two items on top, between the air compressor and a tire repair plug kit, I have never found myself stranded anywhere. I can usually get somewhere where I can get the problem resolved. If you have to go somewhere other than Tesla, know where your jacking points are. On the Model 3 and the Y, there's a cutout under the chassis there, which are the lifting points. On the S and the X, they're also marked on the side of the frame. Make sure that wherever you go, they know what they're doing as to how to lift your vehicle. If they do it wrong, they will kill your battery. They will damage the case. You don't want that happening.
Do you need, the service garage I take it to, they have special pucks that you put on their lift.
Yep, took it right. Great segue. Thank you, Mark. I was just about to say, I've actually purchased those. I keep them in my car. So if I ever, I think they cost about 40 or $50 or something, maybe even less. If you're a club member, there's a company called Tesbros, Tesbros. Club members get a 15% discount there. So if you order them online, you can get them from them. And I just keep it in the car. If I go to a shop that doesn't have that, I pull them out and say, here you go. If you can't use this, you can't lift my car. All righty. Okay. All right. So if you have a flat tire, again, 12-volt compressor. The reason it says sometimes it comes with your car, really strange. Before the Lancaster Service Center was up, I actually used to deal with Owings Mills down in Maryland all the time. Well, if you bought a car at Owings Mills, you had an air compressor in the car. If you picked up your car in Devon or Pittsburgh, there was no air compressor in the car. Don't ask me why, but maybe there's some law in Maryland that I don't know about that says if you don't have a spare, you got to give them an air compressor. but so if you bought your car in Maryland, you have it. Keep the tire repair plug. Know where your jack points are. Yeah, do remember that the OEM tires have foam in them, which supposedly decreases road noise. Make sure that if you take it somewhere else to get repaired, that you make them aware of that.
So on that note, as far as getting, at some point, I'm going to need new tires.
Yep.
How do you recommend? Where do I go to get tires that are
Honestly,
Tesla approved with the foam inside?
honestly, I wouldn't bother.
Doesn't make a difference.
I've had them both ways, and I don't see any difference. I can't hear any
Okay.
difference. What kind of car do you have? A Y, Mark?
We got a Model 3 Performance
3 Performance. Okay. Yeah, I mean
with the 19-inch wheels. I don't have the Performance wheels. I got the Stealth Performance.
Okay. With the 19-inch wheels, as an all-season tire, the MXM4, the Michelin's, by far, I've heard the best results as far as longevity.
Michelin, what were they? MX?
MXM4, low rolling resistance tire, and that you get an amazing amount of life out of them.
Okay. You said they're all season?
Yes, they're all.
Okay.
What about the Nikola Tesla app? What was that, Alan? Well, come on.
Didn't know anything about that app.
I'm sorry.
Didn't even know anything about it. It has nothing to do with this. It was good putting it for the end of the conversation. Okay.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, we'll talk about it at the end then. I've heard of it. I've never really looked at it. But I will talk about a couple of other apps that I have looked at before we get out of here. So, okay. Yeah. The other thing, Mark. I mean, even with all seasons, I put winter tires on my car too. Like I said, I live in a very hilly area. I have a 15 miles of downgrade when I leave my house, and pretty steep stuff. So I don't mess around. I put Michelin X Ice winter tires on my cars every year,
Okay.
and I have a second set of wheels, and I just swap them.
All right. Hey, the other thing I want to cover, we don't have to do it right now, is wind noise. How to maybe reduce some of it, because with the car being so quiet, the wind noise seems to be very noticeable. So, at some point, maybe at the end of the conversation, I want to derail it right now.
Sure. Okay, so checking tire pressure. Everybody knows how to use cards. You do a swipe from right side to left side, and that'll bring up your tire pressure. On Model S and X, you hit your scroll wheel for the center screen, and you'd move to status. And if you go into status, that'll give you your tire pressure on your cars. Okay, so let's just go over a couple of things of when you need to call service and when you don't. Okay, so
John,
yes.
a quick question. So is there an ideal tire pressure that we should have in our cars?
In the Model 3Y, I believe the pressure is about 42. It's 45 in the S and X.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. So I hear a boom when I move the car after it's been parked for a while. I think everybody's probably heard that. And it's basically the parking brake releasing. Again, we don't use our brakes a lot. So, you're going to get some interesting sounds sometimes out of that when the car's been sitting for a while. I hear a clunk in the morning when I get in the car. That famous clunk is actually the main battery contactors closing to make the high voltage battery connection. So if you hear that, again, nothing to worry about. Humming fan noise while the car is parked. Again, our cars, aren't always sitting there quietly. They're always doing something, managing the battery temperature. So systems are always coming on and off. It's not unusual to hear fan noises going or even circulation noises in there. Okay, so a small pool of fluid, whoop, I hit it one too many times, collected under the car. We put this in there only because we saw this on the Tesla forum where someone saw a puddle of water under the car and was completely panicked and had no idea that air conditioning systems actually drip. So we threw it on there just in case anybody out there doesn't know that your air conditioning system is going to leave a puddle of water under your car periodically. Notice of regenerative braking limited, nothing wrong with your brakes. Again, normal when it's cold or the battery's full. Okay, so Elon tweeted that Teslas can float like a boat. And believe it or not, there have been people that have done this. We don't recommend that you do that. As a matter of fact, you need to be pretty careful going through deep water. As we say in here, you might be tempted to drive like that, but don't do it unless you want to be like Barry. Well, Barry's one of the co-founders of the state club with me, and Barry drove his Model 3 through a fairly deep puddle of water and took the rear bumper off. So you want to be aware that water can be pretty damaging to a vehicle if you're not careful about it. And I left it up there just in case he's ever in the class. Okay, how to schedule service. I assume at this point, everybody knows how to do that. You do it in your app. If you're in Pennsylvania, there's a phone number to dial, and there's also email. And believe it or not, they actually do monitor those emails. So it's, if you've got a question about whether I want to bring the car in for service or not, it's not a bad idea to fire off an email to them, tell them what's going on.
Yeah, they're pretty prompt with it too. I mean, I've
Yep.
gotten answers back within minutes sometimes.
Yep, they absolutely monitor it. In addition to that, I would also say that we have, the club has an email set up for that, and we also have a hotline where you will actually talk to a real person if you're having a problem with your car. So we can actually kind of triage a little bit for you before you get desperate about getting a hold of service.
Yeah, once you've been into the Lancaster Service Center, I do have a direct number. They just don't publish it.
Yes. And we do have that, but again, I even have Bill's cell, but I don't publish that. I promise. But it's there. If you call the club number, we have ways of actually getting a person on the line, and we could probably help you get through some of that. So recommended maintenance for our cars. Most of these can be done by mobile service. Check your brake fluid every 2 years. I mean, you would do that with any vehicle. Clean and lubricate the brake calipers annually is something that you wouldn't normally do in an ICE vehicle. And the reason for that is we don't use our brakes very much because of regenerative braking. So if we're going through, especially, it's optional in a mild winter, but if you're going through a winter where we've got typical Pittsburgh and Pennsylvania weather, then you're going to want to get this done because our calipers are going to get salted up. They're made out of cast iron. They rust. We're not using them a lot. So it's a good idea that we get in there and they get lubricated and cleaned up. It's actually a good service to keep in mind. Four-wheel alignment, look, you watch your tires. It's simple as that. If you see tires wearing a little unusually, then you obviously are going to need to deal with that. Your cabin air filter every 2 years, your HEPA filter every 3, tire rotation 10 to 12,000 miles, unless you've got offsetting tires. And Model X is probably, or any of the Performance S's is probably where you'll more likely see that, where your front tires and your rear tires are different sizes. Your windshield wipers annually. Be careful with the wiper blades. Do not pull them off the windshield for any great distance. Put them in service mode, but you'll find they only go up an inch or two. It's not like a lot of cars, where you see that the wiper blades are all flopped out over the hood. If you do that, you're going to break your wiper arms. Teslas don't do that. The key fob replacement, your battery needs to get changed annually on the S and the X. If you have a key fob for your Y, you're going to need that also. Okay. So any question on any of the stuff that we just went through, because we're roughly, we're probably about 70% through right now. Okay. Let's talk about controls, settings, and the user interface. First of all, quick controls of the Model 3 and the Y. First item on the menu, everybody should know, you adjust your mirrors, steering wheel positions, manually fold mirrors, lock rear windows. Are there any questions on this screen? I won't waste a lot of time on it if everybody's comfortable. Okay, quick controls in the S and the X. Again, you get that from your screen. With the S and the X, it's a little more complicated. And if you're looking here, these things all have to do with the side doors, different positions for the side doors going up on the X. But again, your quick controls are all there, basically the access to the same items. Anybody out there have questions on an S or an X? Do we have an S or an X owner on tonight? Okay, all right, well then I won't spend any time on the SX stuff. Okay, driver profiles. Save your driver profiles. They actually save everything. Your seat settings. If you're in a Model S or an X, you could have an adjustable headrest. Side view mirror settings, your steering wheel position, your music settings, everything in your touchscreen, your climate settings, everything is going to be saved with your driver profile. You can use those for different situations also. I have a driver profile set up for when I'm supercharging. So I will flip on my supercharging driver profile, the seat goes back, the wheel goes up, and it usually puts my entertainment system on ready for Netflix. So, because that's kind of what I do when I'm supercharging. Easy entry. This is shared by all driver profile settings if you have this enabled. I don't use it. I don't have trouble getting in and out of the car. If I had a Model 3, I might have some issues with that. My Model S, I used to have some issues with that, but with the Y, it's a piece of cake. Easy entry just basically moves the seat back and the wheel up so you can get in and out of the vehicle. Mirror adjustment, as most folks know, you can set your mirrors so that they will tilt when you go into reverse, or you can set them that they don't, and that will also save in your profile. Okay, valet mode, real quick, I don't know if anybody actually uses this, but if you do, you need to set a code the first time you use it. You set it in the driver profile. It basically restricts a ton of functions in the car. It holds the speed under 70, limits power, locks the glove box, voice commands, autopilot are disabled, mobile access settings are disabled, no home link, they can't access driver profiles. Basically, it makes your car safe for somebody to go park it. Okay. The top menu bars, and again, this stuff is changing all the time. This little T is gone. So we don't have that anymore. And I miss that because I like that shortcut. But for some reason, they took it off. But let's make sure everybody's familiar with what's showing up on here. First of all, this little star here, that's for Sentry mode. When you have a red dot in the center of that, you have Sentry mode on. Over here is the dash cam. When you have a red dot there, you've got your dash cam on. This is Bluetooth settings. This is the signal for the car's connection to the cell network. This is not your phone's connection. So be aware of that. A lot of people look at that and say, I got 5 bars and my phone's dead. Well, yeah, Teslas connect to the AT&T network. If you've got a Verizon phone, you got 1 bar, yeah, they're not going to be related. Rashad, are you trying to come off mute?
Yes, I have a quick question here.
Sure.
So the dash cam icon next to the Sentry mode, I don't see that in my car at all. And this is something that I actually, when I gave the car for my heating and AC, I raised this issue with them, and they said they checked and it's fine. After that, also I have not seen that at all. So I saw it only one time when I popped my SSD drive in it, and after that I have not seen it. I tried to format it one time, and again I have used a formatted drive and it still doesn't show. So I don't know if it's sorry.
Did you try to format your drive in the car using the Tesla format function?
Both actually. So I manually formatted it in using the laptop, and then I also used the format function in the car.
Okay, if, what I will tell you is if you formatted it on your laptop and then put it in the car and tried to format it again, it probably did not format correctly.
Okay, so I just use the car.
Yeah, well, yeah, you need to just use the car, but before that, you need to bring that drive inside, connect to your computer and wipe the disk. Make sure that,
Okay,
yeah, make sure that you don't have any of the boot tracks identified. You got to literally wipe that disk clean.
okay, okay. Let me do that again. Okay,
Yeah, and then put it in the car and let the car format it.
okay, got it.
Okay, we have voice commands in our car. We can tell it all kinds of fun stuff, and this changes all the time. So the only way I have found to keep up with it is if I'm going to do something, I try and tell it to do it vocally first, and if it does it, that's great. If it doesn't, then I'll go do it manually. But I as a default, I'll hit voice command first before I'll start digging through stuff. I like this one. My wife's butt is cold. That works great. Okay, so then we have the app launcher. Now, this is launched from the little up arrow in our bottom menu. This is a sub menu under that. And this is where you get to that energy screen that we were talking about earlier. That's right here. That's where consumption and trip are. So just so you're aware of that. I'm going to go through this fairly quickly because most of you guys have been driving your cars for a while, it sounds like. Stop me if you have a question on anything as we're going through this, okay? Anybody have any question? Everybody know about the when you get to 121 miles of range on the car? Anybody not know about that?
Not sure what that is.
All right, well, when you have exactly 121 miles of range showing on your car and you open your app and tap the battery gauge, it will ask you to make sure that you have plutonium fuel inserted in the reactor, and you'll have to say yes to continue. So that relates to, for those who may not have seen it, Back to the Future. And you know, everybody knows Elon's a big fan of Back to the Future. Anyway, on the other things, name your car those things and press and hold your phone app, and you'll find out what they do. I'd rather let you get surprised. Okay, so trip odometers in the S and the X, we're not going to talk about. Trip cards in the Model 3 and Y, in the same way that I said before, you go from right to left to bring up tire pressure, you go from left to right to bring up your odometer cards. If you want to change the name of these cards, you notice this one says Lifetime. Click on the three dots, and then you can go in and rename those trips anything you want. I keep one as Lifetime because I like to kind of monitor what kind of watt hours per mile I'm getting on the car since it was new. And then the other trip, actually, I reset seasonally. So I can also monitor what kind of watt hours per mile I'm getting in different seasons. Okay, climate controls. I'm assuming that everybody knows how to use the climate controls at this point. Is everybody aware that when you put the rear defroster on, it also will heat side view mirrors? It also, importantly, will heat your charging port. Newer Model 3s and Ys have heated charging ports. So when you hit that rear defroster, if you've got a real cold day and you plugged in and charged and you worry you're going to get all frozen in there, you put it on the rear window defroster, that will heat your charging port up. Okay. Any questions on climate, camp, and dog mode? If anybody wants me to go into this, I'm happy to dig, but I just don't want you guys sitting there saying, oh, well, we know all this stuff. Okay, so everybody knows all this? Good. Who actually uses it, just out of curiosity?
I'll use camp mode on occasion if I'm preheating a car and I'm going to get in and out, or opening up doors or whatever. I don't want every time I open up the door to my cabin turns off. So I use camp mode for that.
Good. Good. Anybody use dog mode? Okay. Yeah, the difference between keeping the climate on and dog mode, remember, is that it disables the screen. So until you start the car again, the screen won't respond to a touch. And it does that because they found some animals were brushing up against it and killing it. And so they didn't want puppies to be frying. So any questions about the media player, how that functions?
A quick question here, John.
Sure.
So is there a way that we can use audio from Google Maps and music from the car? I mean, if I'm using my phone, so the Google Maps is on my phone, and is there a way I can just use the audio from the maps and then I can also still use this? Or once it is shifted to the phone, then I just have to use the audio from the phone and I can't use any of this?
Yeah, my gut is telling me that you can't have, if you've got the phone plugged in, you can't have two items accessing the entertainment system at once. It would almost be like telling it to play the FM radio and Spotify at the same time. It doesn't see any difference between that.
Gotcha. Yeah, the reason I'm asking this because I have my other car, it's an Audi Q7. I can do that actually, so I can have the radio from the car, and I can also have the audio from the Google apps, Google Maps. But it also uses Apple Play, so I think that's why it may be able to do that.
Yeah,
it doesn't.
Yeah, if you're using Apple Play, it can discern that. But as far as the car is concerned, when you're playing anything from your phone to the car, it's no different than if you plug the USB drive in.
Right. Okay.
Any other questions on media? Okay, so a couple of quick ones on nav. Make sure you set your home and work destinations. You could swipe the directions after you put it in up or down once it's in here to get details on your trip and to give you an estimate on what percentage of battery you're going to arrive with. On the map, aside from the plus and minus you have here and the direction, you also, if you tap anywhere on the map, you'll get this little box up on here. The bottom one, if you tap that, will give you a list of superchargers. The one above that, the little traffic light, will tie you into online traffic updates.
So on that one, any news about Google owns Waze,
Mm-hmm.
and Waze has police officer on the map where you're going. If they could import that, the nav would be perfect in my opinion. It's the fact that it doesn't tell me where the cops are, makes it a. I don't find the real-time traffic rerouting as accurate as and fast to respond as Waze does.
Yes. Well,
so
sure, and that's because Waze is getting real-time updates from people.
Right.
That's the difference.
I mean, since Google owns them and they're using Google Maps,
Yeah.
Somebody call Elon up and tell him to put that in there.
I'm not sure that Elon would feel comfortable saying that we're putting police radar locations in the car.
Well, don't tell anybody. Just silently put that out there.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm not quite sure that would happen. The top symbol of the globe lets you toggle between this type of map or a satellite background, satellite image. I will tell you, if you use the satellite image, it can slow your map reaction down a bit because it's going to take a while to paint. Yeah, it'll be the WAS thing will be interesting to see if that ever comes together. but just for other reasons, it'd be nice to see WAS integrated in there, not even worried about the cop thing. But see, Mark, you said you don't have FSD, right?
That's correct.
Yeah, see, those of us that drive with FSD never speed.
Ah, that's why I don't have it.
Yep. So that's why I don't think about that. We're not going to go through the SNX suspension, which could take you a lifetime. Okay, everybody knows about the light settings. Anything in here that anybody has any questions about? Oh, this is good. We're ripping through here. How about locks? Everybody comfortable with key cards? Understanding how your phone works with the car? Maybe we'll talk about that just a little bit. So in the 3 and the Y, you can use your phone as a key. So if you haven't done that already, it uses a Bluetooth connection, which is very cool because it doesn't depend on a cell network being active for it to work. So you can really depend on it. The problem with the S and the X, they use the cell network to connect their phone apps. And again, I don't know if that's true in the newly released S and X models coming out right now, but that was the case in the model 3 months ago, where it was using a cell connection. If you lost a cell connection and you didn't have your key fob, you weren't driving your car. Or even worse than that, if you were driving your car and you went through an area with no cell service and parked the car, you're not getting it started again. So all kinds of problems with that. So they solved that with the Bluetooth connection in the 3 and the Y. What I still find, first of all, always carry your key card in your wallet anyway, because who the heck knows what's going to happen? You drop your phone, it breaks, somebody steals it, all of a sudden you can't get in your car. In addition to that, I still find that there is some inconsistency if the app is not open in my phone when I'm trying to use it around the car. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And literally, if I'm in the car and I have the app open and I close the app, I'll get a message that tells me that my remote key is disconnected.
I haven't run into that, but I've had to, when I've walked up, the app, even with the app closed, 90% of the time I can walk up and open the car. But on a rare occasion, I have to open the app up and log in, or open the app and just let it connect to the car before it'll unlock the car for me. I've had that happen probably half a dozen different times.
Okay.
The trick is open the app up and let it take that 30 seconds to wake the car up. Then all of a sudden it'll like connect.
Well, what I found anyway with my iPhone, I just keep the app open in the background, and
Yeah.
and as long as the app is open, it works fine. I just find if I close the app somewhere and then I go back to the car, it doesn't work, and I've got to reopen the app again, which is a pain.
Yeah.
The other thing actually that I use, which is, see if you guys can see this, is I use a ring. And this particular ring functions exactly like the key card. So I wear this ring, and all I have to do is basically touch that to the pillar, and it unlocks the car. And if I touch that to the center console, it unlocks, it powers up the car. So I find that really convenient. I love this.
So one thing I just want to add here, I used to have the same problem where I used to, unless the app is open, the car will not unlock. And I did some Googling around it and went to Reddit and stuff. So one of the things that's working for me, if I set the location on as always in the settings of Tesla app, now I don't have to open the app at all. And the minute I reach the car, I'm able to unlock it.
Yes.
That's
So the
interesting
location
because
yeah.
I have my phone set up that now I'm running an Android and I'm running a Samsung. There's something called Samsung Routines. As soon as my Bluetooth connects to the car, my phone opens up the Tesla app and turns my location on. So that's interesting that you mentioned location because I haven't had any issues lately, and it might be because I'm running that routine that whenever I get, attaches to the car, my phone does certain things. Like it'll open up Audible, does a bunch of other things that I wanted to do. And one of them's turning on locations. That's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. So once I started using the location as always, I don't have to open the app at all. And it's an iPhone. So I just go and the car will let me in.
That's a great tip, Rashab, and I'm going to try that. I believe that I have that off on my phone because I normally keep that off because I know that when it's always monitoring location, it tends to eat my battery up.
Yeah.
But I will take a look at that. That's a great tip.
Yeah.
That's why I love these sessions. I'm telling you, 6 years of driving these cars, it's rare that a day goes by that I don't learn something new about it. Okay, so any questions on using your phone as a key? Okay, we don't have to worry about S and X. Driving. Let's talk about driving. Anybody have any questions? We'll start with that before I dig into this at all. Because if everybody's good, like I said, I don't want you guys falling asleep on me.
So I have a quick comment here, John. So for the region braking, if I'm driving in snow, is it still recommended to use hold mode, or should I then go with the roll? Because if the roads are little slippery, then when I'm taking my foot off the pedal, it can actually brake, which I don't usually want when I'm driving on a snowy road.
Yeah, that's a great question, Rashab, and it's a question that gets asked a lot. Initially, Tesla's position was always that when you're driving on slippery roads, like snow-covered type stuff, you should put regen on low. That was always their position. I've disagreed with that position from day one. But you have to know what you're doing. You can very easily, especially in my Model S, it was never an issue because the Model S never had the kind of regen that the Y does. With the cars that we're driving, where we've got pretty strong regen, if you come off the accelerator pedal too fast, you could definitely put yourself into a skid. So the trick is to be comfortable with one pedal driving and know where you need to go with the pedal to make sure that you're not going to brake too abruptly. But my feeling is I would rather one pedal drive on a snowy road than have to think about hitting my brakes. I think I have much more control over the vehicle using regen.
Yeah, because I think the anti-slip would cut in a little bit quicker. You're getting to the point where at the regen, if you know what you're doing, like you said, if it does start to slip and you don't move your foot, the anti-lock, the braking, the skid would come into play.
That's right. Absolutely correct. So that's my feeling about it.
Okay.
You've got to do what you really have to do what you're comfortable with. Some people aren't quite comfortable with one pedal driving. There are people out there that don't use they have it set on creep and roll and all that kind of fun stuff. Because they're trying to make it feel like the car they've always been used to driving. It's a very unusual feeling to be so dependent on a single pedal. So some people just aren't comfortable that way. Is everybody comfortable with slip start? Okay. Yeah, no questions about that. Everybody knows how to rock themselves out of a snowbank. Okay. All right. Range mode is not in our cars, so ignore that. Trailer mode. Anybody have questions on trailer mode or off-road assist? Okay, great. Let's talk a little bit about autopilot. We're ripping right through here. And like I said, all we're talking about today is basic autopilot. There's an FSD class on full self-driving for people who want that. So first of all, this is a common issue here. When you're looking at cruise follow distance, this is not a fixed distance. These are not car lengths. This is time. it depends on the speed you're traveling, and it will adjust your following distance accordingly. So don't think that that is supposed to be a car length, and all of a sudden you say, wait, I said one car length and I'm only a half a car length. Well, at 25 miles an hour, it's going to get closer. When you get on a highway, it's going to pull you back. If you're using autopilot, you need auto steer on. If you do not have FSD, you do not have that or any of this. Adjusting cruise control, everybody understands how to do that with the scroll wheel, I assume. So we'll zip right past that.
Wait, one question on the regular autopilot.
Sure.
So if I'm in autopilot and I come up behind a truck that's slower, I have to disengage autopilot, move over, come back, re-engage.
Right.
Is there any talk about being able to just manually turn on the turn signal, not have to disengage autopilot,
You
and
have
I'll manually move it over and bring it back?
no. You have auto lane change with FSD.
That's the one feature that I would want out of FSD.
You want to know something? It was the straw that broke the back for me too. I came out of an AP1 car, and I had that in my AP1 car, and I couldn't even imagine owning a car and not being able to do that.
Yeah. I mean, my wife has a Honda and it does it.
Right, I get it.
You know, it's that one feature that I would pay for that one feature if I could do a la carte.
What I will tell you, Mark, you think that's the only feature, but what I have found is I absolutely love Navigate on autopilot. It's a marvelous tool. It takes me on and off interchanges, exit ramps, changes lanes for me, basically makes your highway driving non-existent.
Yeah. I just couldn't
I was
justify the price even when it was $7,000. So
actually, and I got it when it was $8,000
yeah.
when I bought my bike. The traffic light recognition, the stop sign recognition is all really coming around and working much better. I would say I use FSD 90% of the time I drive, even on local roads. At this point. Yeah.
Okay.
So I would keep that in mind. What I think is going to happen, if I was a betting man, I think you're going to see a subscription service to FSD this year. So
Yeah, that would be interesting.
yep. Okay, so talking about displays, everybody understand what's in here. One of the things that we talked about, the energy display, which is right here. If you display this as energy instead of distance, that's where you get percentage displayed on your battery. And as you see here, as it's been discussed, always set it to percentage if you're an anxious person. Screen clean mode. Does everybody understand how that works? Okay. All right. Safety and security. Speed limit mode also puts the vehicle in chill mode, which is handy if you've got youngsters in the family that have decided they like driving your car also. So putting a speed limit on the car is not a bad idea. As a matter of fact, I actually put one on the car while my son was driving at 80 miles an hour on the turnpike, and I set it down to 70. And he thought he broke the car. So, anyway, but that's not a bad function to have if you've got kids driving. This is where you set Sentry mode. Again, I keep this off. You can enable Sentry mode from the touchscreen. You don't have to keep it on all the time. You also have the ability to exclude some locations for Sentry mode going on if you are using it. And again, this is where you format your driver shop.
Thanks.
Okay. Safety and security. Again, this is a nice feature. If you're running dash cam, it's if you honk your horn, it will save roughly 10 minutes of the last 10 minutes of your video clip. So if some idiot cuts you off and you want to make sure you get his plate number, honk your horn. And that instantly saves the clip for you. Park assist chimes, the rest, everybody, does everybody understand Joe mode? Okay. Then we'll move past it. Cabin overheat protection. Again, this is the stuff that if you're parking the car unplugged, you want to consider disabling that. Okay. Lane assist. Are there any questions about lane assist? Okay. Forward collision warnings, everybody understands the forward-looking camera is looking about 525 feet ahead, which is why it will see the car ahead of the car in front of you, which is kind of handy because it gives it a chance to react long before you can. You can set the sensitivity level to that as to how you want that, and you can see that in here, early, medium, or late warning, or you can turn it off if you want. Lane departure avoidance. This is the optional one, which basically will give you a warning, or it can assist. It can nudge you back into lane if you drift. Emergency lane departure avoidance. This is a biggie. It's on by default at the start of every drive. So even if you turn it off while you're driving, as soon as you restart the car, it's going to turn back on again. This is really panic mode. This means you've got to make an emergency maneuver to avoid a collision. That's when the car will take over, and that will happen no matter what version of autopilot you're running. Blind spot collision. Personally, I find it mediocre. I mean, I've had blind spot collision avoidance in other vehicles that I thought were better. With one of the problems I have with this, the chime isn't even so much the issue. As you know, it illuminates the car next to you in red on your screen if that car is in your blind spot. Well, when I'm going to make a lane change, I'm not looking at the screen. I'm looking at my side view mirror. And if I can't see the car, I don't know that it's red on my screen. So I think they really need to work on improving that. There's something that's got to be done to make that better. Automatic emergency braking. Understand, it applies your brakes to reduce the severity of the collision. It will not stop your car. It starts the braking process. So if this alert goes off and you go to hit your brake pedal, you're going to find your brake pedal is probably about halfway down already. It's supposed to improve your response time. You still have responsibility for stopping your vehicle. The vehicle is not going to stop itself. Okay, any questions on that?
A quick observation again here. So on the display when you're driving, you can actually see the cars on the left, right, and the front, but you don't see anything in the rear. So even if someone is tailgating you as close as possibly, and what it has happened with me a couple of times driving on the highway, on the Model Y, the rear mirror is not that great, and then even the window is not that big, so you can't actually see if there's a car which is either it's a sports car or a car with a lower hood. You can't actually see the car behind you, and it doesn't show up on the display at all. So is that by design that they omitted that the cars are not being shown
Yeah.
that are close to you?
Well, the reason that it doesn't show is that it depends on the rear camera and ultrasonics for rear views. So you've got a rear camera, which you could put on and leave on.
Yes. Yeah, I can see that. But it when the camera is switched off, just on the display, I can still see the cars, right? On the left and the right and in the front. But
Yep.
I don't see that on for the cars coming behind me.
Yeah, realize that you're seeing those cars on the left and the front because there are cameras that are on observing those lanes.
Right.
If you don't have a camera on in the rear observing your rear, you're not going to see it.
Okay. Okay. So that has to be manually you have to turn it on.
Yes.
And for the sides and the front, it's automatically.
Yeah,
It's
those
always on.
right. Those cameras are all on all the time.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay, service, again, wiper service mode we talked about. Anybody have any issues or questions about tow mode? This is usually something that most people haven't used. Okay, I'll tell you what, if you guys are all comfortable with it, I'll keep going. If you're not, just let me know. I have no problem going into this stuff. That's what it's here for. Okay. All right. Software. I'm assuming everybody's aware that if you click on this little additional vehicle information button down there, it's going to pop up this window and you'll know everything about what's in your car. The type of motor, front and rear, whether you have a tow package, anything that's included in your car, which is handy. It's nice to know once in a while, if you need to check on something. But all that is contained on that little button right there. Okay, dash cam, Sentry mode. So to record, you basically tap on the dash cam icon when it's paused to start recording video on the flash drive. Dash cam will temporarily store 1 hour of footage before it overwrites that. As I said before, if you have the setting on to save a clip, when you honk your horn, it'll save that 10-minute clip as a file on your drive. Other than that, it will continually loop that 1 hour loop. Okay. So when Sentry mode is on, it's going to let you know when events get reported. You can look for the red dot on the camera. This is the dash cam. This really should be pointing to, obviously we didn't have it on this piece of the header, but the dash cam is operating when you see a red dot on the dash cam. When Sentry mode is on, you'll see events logged below that to let you know that there have been events. And you'll notice it records a 10-minute event every time there is one, including somebody walking by your car, which is why you can eat up range really, really quickly. Okay, so this used to be what it took to attach either a USB or an SSD drive to the car. We keep this screen here just as a reminder of what it used to take. You used to have to go to a Windows machine or a Mac. You had to format it a particular way to get all this set up. Now, all you need to do is format it in the car. A lot easier than it used to be. It's great that they added that feature, and I have not yet heard of anybody trying to format a USB drive or an SSD drive in the car that had a problem, except for a shop.
Yep.
But yeah, I'm pretty sure that's going to work for you. Just wipe that drive. Okay, operating autopilot. We'll go through this quick. 1 stroke down on your gear shift engages TAC, traffic aware cruise control. 2 strokes down is auto steer. We're not going to get into the S and the X at all. Questions about operating autopilot? When you have a gray steering wheel icon up, that lets you know that autopilot is available. When you engage it, your icon, which is right up here, will turn blue. You'll also see lines on the road letting you know. When you see double lines on the road, it'll let you know that autopilot's available. Navigate on autopilot, we're not going to get into tonight. yeah, again, this, yeah, we're only going to deal with basic autopilot here. TAC and auto steer tips. Okay, TAC can be activated 18 miles an hour is the slowest speed for TAC. Auto steer can engage if the gray steering wheel symbol is present at any time. And you can see that gray symbol right there. The speed limit is 5. You can go 5 miles an hour over on local roads. You have to keep it under 90 on limited access roads. So I know that restricts a couple of you guys who have heavy foots, but that's the limitations right now. Again, auto steer works when it sees road lines. Auto lane change does not work. It actually used to, but it no longer works with basic autopilot. If you disengage auto steer by moving the steering wheel, TAC stays on, and you should be aware of that. Your cruise control is still working. If you want to disengage both of them, you need to either lift up the gear shift lever or press on the brake to disengage them both. And realize while they're engaged, you can still press on the accelerator while they're engaged to pick up speed if you're passing somebody or something along those lines. Again, to appease the autopilot nag, you've got to tug on the wheel periodically so that they know that you're still awake. Any questions about that? Okay. Standard safety features. We talked about automatic emergency braking. Again, it engages the brakes, but it doesn't stop the car. You need to stop your car. The forward collision warning is just what it says. It's going to give you a beep to let you know. It's not going to take any action with the vehicle. Obstacle aware acceleration. I have never seen this work. I'm sure it's in there. I've just never been in a situation where it happened. We think that it was the response to the whole sudden unintended acceleration problem that Tesla was cleared of, as a matter of fact, by the Transportation Safety Board. So we think that had something to do with that. Standard safety features. Again, you have side collision warning, blind spot monitoring, lane departure avoidance. Again, if you have that set, that'll nudge you back into lane. Emergency lane departure is particularly for someone's swiping over into your lane and your car is going to react. But there are limitations on autopilot. It requires visibility. It's cameras and sensors. Even if the radar is clear, autopilot is not going to stay engaged on radar only. So if you've got inclement weather, you're dealing with rain or snow or stuff like that, or it can't see the lines, autopilot is going to disengage. It's going to tell you that it's not going to work. So, and you'll get any of a number of warnings for reduced visibility. With FSD, you'll see auto lane change available. You'll see navigate on autopilot unavailable. The most common one is you'll see that a door pillar camera is blocked or blinded. And really, it comes down to this. Sunlight can be blinding. And in the wintertime, the sun is fairly low in the sky. We probably run into this a little more than we do in the summer. So anything that affects visibility can affect your autopilot and whether or not it's going to be engaged. If there's no obvious reason, wait and see if it goes away. Put the car in park, when you get to a spot and stop, and you can reboot, check and clean your cameras. If you can't see any of that, it's time for a service call. And again, condensation. The side cameras, they're not hermetically sealed. Tesla supposedly designed this on purpose so that air would circulate in those camera wells. Unfortunately, that also means humidity can get in there and you can get some fogging. It's considered a normal occurrence. Don't call service about it. They'll tell you it's the famous line, which is it's within spec. And the stuff will clear normally in 20 or 30 minutes. Normally that stuff will clear, especially if you park in the sun. It clears real fast. Slush and snow buildup on the front. Front radar requires a clear bumper to work. All those features will be disabled if your front bumper is not clear. We find the best thing that we found out there to do this is the Rust-Oleum Never Wet top coat. Only number 2, never use the base coat. If you put the base coat on, it doesn't want to come off. The top coat goes on. It's a little hazy when it's on, but you can wipe it off when you're done, but it will prevent any kind of buildup on your front bumper. Phantom braking is something else that happens with autopilot. Autopilot is still gets tricked fairly easily on some of these things. If you notice in this picture, the shadow that's running across the road here is enough to cause your car to brake. The other thing that I find happens all the time, this road is slightly elevated and you're going downhill to an overpass. At this point in time, the car thinks it's on the same level as your overpass. And you may find that it goes through a braking session when it gets there.
Yeah, there's a spot in the Pennsylvania Turnpike west to east every single time it phantom brakes. I know it's there. I turn off autopilot and just cruise past that spot and then re-engage it. But it's the same thing coming down. There's a bridge with a sign every single time it gets tricked.
Yep.
It's like clockwork.
Yep. The only thing I can say is every time that happens, I've gotten in the habit now, I send a bug report.
Okay.
Because I want them to learn. I want them to see what's going on. And that's the only way it's going to get better. Look, for all intents and purposes, we're the guinea pigs out here.
Yep.
And it's really, if we want this to get better, it's up to us to contribute to it. And that is the level 2 class, my friends. Again, presented by the Tesla Owners Club of Pennsylvania. We have 5 chapters around the state, so no one has an excuse saying there's no chapter near me. We expect everybody in Pennsylvania to join the club. And that helps support what we do, the virtual education, the tech talks, these ABC classes. We have a mentoring program now with new owners where we actually pair up new owners with experienced members and give them something to lean on when they're first getting their cars. We can all think about what it was like the first day we got our car and how nuts that felt, trying to figure all this stuff out.
Yeah, if you need a mentor, let me know. I'd be willing to help out with that program.
Yeah, I already had you in mind, Mark.
All right.
And that's part of our owner support program. As part of the support program, we have a monitored email out there for members to answer questions, and we have a hotline number that they can pick up and call, and probably 90% of the time, maybe even 95%, they're going to get a voice on the other end that's going to help them right away. So that's what we're about. There's the hotline number actually right there for club members. If for the folks that live outside of Pennsylvania, if you don't want to join the club, feel free to go on the page and make a donation so we keep offering this kind of stuff. And I know we have a question in here. Oh, you're quite welcome, Shelley. All right, so let's talk about Tesla apps. And actually, there's an app in particular. Actually, hang on a second. I'm going to share my screen one more time. Hang on. Let me see if I can. Okay. Do you guys still see my screen?
No.
Okay. Let me do that again. Hold on. How about
There
now?
we go.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. I'm going to cheat up a little. You see, this was just our class. There's lots of classes in here. But there's, where are we? Here we go. All right. This is Tesla Remote. I found that this is a wonderful remote app. There's also Tesla Watch, which works really well if you have an Apple Watch. Gives you all kinds of functionality in here. I have it on my phone, but I probably wouldn't be able to show it to you on here. But I would certainly take a look at that online as an app. Now the Nikola app that you mentioned, I think I had looked at that at one time, but there was something about it that kept me away from it, and I don't remember why. It was a while ago, Alan. Oh, Alan's gone. Okay, well, I went into that for nothing. Anyway, floor's open. Any questions that you guys have left, just let me know. We're happy to discuss anything that you guys want to talk about.
I got
So I
one
think-
question for you guys. I'm sorry. This is Bill with Immaculate Paint Protection.
We go.
Do the new cars, when they come right out of the when they're delivered, are they